If you send,
Yeah, now we are able to see.
yeah, it's
Now,
visible.
let's go. Finally.
You can go ahead.
Good evening, everyone. Yes, ma'am. Good evening, everyone. Firstly, I would like to wish everyone Happy Teachers' Day, senior faculty members, mentors, guides. Myself, Dr. Nishan, senior resident from KM Hospital, Mumbai. My guide is Dr. Vinita Puri, and I'll thank Lakshmi ma'am for giving me this opportunity. I would like to present a case of multiple burn contractures. 42-year-old burn survivor, female,
Be
homemaker who is a
loud.
resident of Kochi. Ma'am, yes, ma'am. 42-year-old burn survivor, female, homemaker by occupation, resident of Kochi, came to us with chief complaints of inability to extend neck since 10 months, inability to abduct both shoulders since 10 months, inability to use right hand since 10 months, and severe scarring of both breasts. History of present illness. She was apparently normal 14 months ago when she sustained self-inflicted flame burns in the kitchen involving head, face, neck, both upper limbs and torso of about 35 to 40% of total body surface area. Now she is complaining of inability to extend neck, unable to maintain eye contact, unable to look upwards, and there is a complaint of occasional drooling of saliva with lower teeth show, and she is unable to turn head sideways, severely restricting her uh, inability to reach objects at height and overhead objects, and unable to comb hair. Inability to grasp and hold things firmly with her right hand, and further impairing her activities of daily living, and she is dependent totally on others for her day-to-day life. Coming to the treatment history, initially her flames were doused by bystanders by rolling her in a blanket and pouring tap water, and later she was rushed to a local hospital where she was managed till discharge. And there is history of ICU stay and ventilator support is present. Details are not known. I would like to ask for the duration of stay and what it was. I would like to ask the details of the treatment which has received there. Wounds were managed by regular dressings and serial bedside debridement, which later led to the formation of raw areas. And there is history of split skin grafting done for right upper limb raw areas. Rest of the wounds healed by secondary intention with extensive scarring over lower face, neck, torso, and upper limbs. And here I would like to ask for the duration of healing and whether she was discharged with any raw areas at the time of discharge. I would like to inquire about. There is history of receiving regular physiotherapy and splintage for neck and upper limb while she was in hospital, and later she gives history that she has discontinued later after discharge. Details of any specific positioning which was given in the hospital stay and the details of the splintage and mobilization given to individual joints, I would like to inquire here. And there is no history of usage of pressure garments, silicone sheets, or massaging. Personal and past medical history. She is happily married for 15 years and completed her family. And she is a right dominant individual. And there are no other any medical comorbidities. And she is not on any drugs. On general physical examination, she is moderately built, moderately nourished, and no pallor express cyanosis, clubbing lymphadenopathy. Her vital data is unremarkable within normal limits. Coming to the local examination of the patient, attitude of the patient examined in standing and sitting position with neck fixed in flexion, arms adducted by the side of the chest and right hand wrist in flexion, and metacarpophalangeal joints in hyperextension and interphalangeal joints in flexion. Local examination of the neck and face region. On inspection, multiple scars noted in the lower face, neck and anterior chest region. Irregular scar of size 20 into 30 centimeters seen in the lower face, extending 20 centimeters horizontally from both mid-lateral lines on the neck and vertically 30 centimeters from nasolabial crease to the upper third of the chest. The scars appear pink in color and edges are raised. Irregular scars of previous split skin graft noted on the anterior aspect of both shoulders. On palpation, there is no scar breakdown or sinuses. Forward-looking gaze is not possible. Severe mentosternal adhesion is present, signifying grade 4 neck contracture. Eversion of lower lip is present and lower teeth show. Effacement of mentolabial sulcus is present and lip seal is inadequate. Nose and left malar area, there was hypopigmented scars and which were flat. On palpation, these scars are non-tender and there is no local rise of temperature. Scar characteristics like size, shape, extent are same on palpation. Scars are blanching on pressure, which signify they are still immature. Range of motion of neck active range of motion, flexion and fixed in flexion deformity, severe flexion deformity, and extension is not possible in active range. Passively, there is a possibility of 10-degree extension. Lateral flexion is not at all possible actively, and from degree of 10 degrees is possible with passively. Hello, ma'am.
Go ahead, go ahead.
Sir. Local examination of axillae. On inspection, extensive scarring noted in the both upper arms, axillae, shoulders, front and back of the chest region. Right axilla, there is a severe grade 4 contracture noted in the right axilla with contracture extending from the anterior and posterior axillary folds with involvement of the surrounding region, which is extending horizontally in horizontal dimensions anteriorly between the chest wall and the medial arm and posteriorly between the lateral border of scapula and the posterior arm, and vertical extent which is extending anteriorly 6 centimeters from the acromion and 15 centimeters from the olecranon. In these images, apex of the axilla are not appreciated, and we are considering the based on the severity of the scarring, we are assuming that axilla is dome of the axilla was involved in this case. Left axilla, similar grade 4 contracture of similar dimensions noted on opposite side. Scars appear homogeneously pale and mostly which are mostly flat, and few scars which are raised in the center of the anterior chest region. Breast, there is no examination of breast. There is no visible projection of breast which are severely scarred, and there is no delineation of nipple and areola complex or the inframammary crease region. Areas of hypopigmentation noted in the axillary folds, more on the posterior fold region and the left scapular area and the right acromial area and the back. Palpation, these scars are non-tendal and there is no localized temperature. Scar characteristics like size, shape, extent are same as in inspection. These scars are non-blanching on pressure. Coming to the shoulder range of movement, right shoulder active range of active abduction is possible for 20 degrees and external rotation to 20 degrees. With passively, a 10 degree gain of abduction, external rotation can be achieved passively. Similarly, for left shoulder, active abduction, external rotation is 30 degrees and 20 degrees respectively. And similar 10 degrees of passive abduction, 10 degree passive, more passive range of motion could be obtained passively. Coming to the local examination of right hand, on inspection, claw deformity of the right hand noted with wrist fixed in 30 degrees palmar flexion, and all metacarpophalangeal joints in hyperextension and proximal interphalangeal joints in complete flexion and distal interphalangeal joints in near complete flexion. Some metacarpophalangeal joint is in extension and interphalangeal joint flexion. In this image, little finger is not appreciated. And in these images, dorsum of the hand is also not seen, possibly involving the severe deformity of the fingers. There could be a possible scar contracture involving the complete dorsum of the hand extending onto the possibly here I would like to assess the quality of the skin and where the contracture is extending. It is extending till the distal extent. I would like to examine whether it is extending till the level of the MP joints or proximal, or more distally onto the PAP joint level. I would like to examine. All web spaces appear to be normal. Areas of hypopigmentation and mixed pigmentation are noted on the dorsum and of all fingers and inner border of the hand. Scars appear pale and flat. There is reversal of metacarpal arch is noted. On palpation, these scars are not non-tender and no localized temperature. These scars are non-blanching and supple. Vascularity of the hand is okay. Motor examination of the hand, I am not provided with the details. I would like to see a motor examination of the hand if possible. If the hand range of motion, active and passive range of motion at all joints of the wrist, metacarpophalangeal joints, IP joints are decreased. Estimation of the true defect for the neck, I would like to. The examination is complete, sir. Here, till. Madam?
Yeah, go ahead.
Estimation of the true defect for the neck, I would like to compare it with another female person of similar stature and build. Firstly, I would like to mark the incision or excision relief on the patient, and distance from the fixed landmarks. Here, I would like to take the knots in lower lip and the sternum. I would mark, and midlateral lights. From there, the true defect I would mark, and similar measurements are reciprocated on another normal individual. Here, almost it is fixed to each other. There is no distance is almost zero. So here, I will directly mark the landmark there, and I would join these areas, and this would be my true defect for the neck. And for axilla, extent of relief is marked, whether incision or excision relief, and distance from fixed points. Superiorly, I will take acromion, and on the chest wall side, I will take iliac crest, and on the upper arm, I will take the olecranon as fixed point. From there, mark the distance from there to the edges of the defect, and these similar measurements I would reciprocate on another person. Here both axillas are scarred. I would reciprocate the same measurements on another person of similar stature and build, and I would join these areas, and these hatched area and this thing is the estimated true defect for axilla. Similarly, I would mark for the opposite axilla also. And for estimation of true defect of the right hand, I would mark the extent of the dorsal release and volar wrist also, and it is marked on the patient. And similarly, from distance from the edges of the defect are marked on to fixed landmarks. Like here, MPs are not appreciated on the dorsum because of severe flaw. I would take PACs as fixed reference points, and from proximal I will take them, and distally radial and ulnar styloids for the dorsal contracture. And for the wrist, and for marking the estimated true defect after wrist release, I would take the web spaces proximal as reference points and elbow crease as reference points. From there I would mark the distance, and similar measurements I would reciprocate on the opposite normal left hand of the patient, and area between them I would mark, and this would be the true defect for the right hand. Local examination of possible donor sites. For skin grafts, both sides, there is minimal scarring present on the lateral aspects of both sides. Buttocks, scalp, and lower abdomen are spare. For locoregional flaps and tissue expansion, supraclavicular region and both shoulders I would consider for neck region, but these are severely scarred. And parascapular region and the back region I would consider for axilla, if at all a flap is planned, but there is a minimal scarring and hypopigmentation in these areas. For the hand, possible donor flap covers areas, abdomen and groin appear to be not normal, and the dorsal forearm there is a scarring is present. Systemic examination is unremarkable, and my provisional diagnosis for this case would be multiple post-burn contracture secondary to flame burn, neck severe grade 4 contracture, both axillary grade 4 contracture as per Kurtzman and Stern classification, and right hand grade 4 Macaulay post-burn deformity of right hand with grade 3 post-burn contracture of the dorsum of the hand, according to Graham and Stern. Yes. Sir? No.
Go ahead.
Sir. Ma'am. Prior to surgery, I would like to I would like to do investigations. I would like to ask for radiographs of the neck and the hand. And apart from that, I would take the routine test to plan for the anesthesia purpose. And I would take serial photographs of the patient prior to the surgery, and I would assess the donor area, and I would make a tentative plan, and I would also make the patient active in the part of decision making, and I would similarly check for the ease of positioning of the limb while planning for the flaps. And treatment plan would be
just wait, Nishant. Go back to investigations.
Sure.
What are you trying to say in radiograph of the neck? Would you like to tell us why you're taking radiographs of the neck?
Sir, there is a severe contracture of the neck. Here I would like to see for any tracheal deviation that could be appreciated if it is also significantly scarred. And one thing, and I would like to see for the C-spine. If it is because of the severe contracture with the neck.
Secondary changes in the cervical spine. Perfect. Okay.
And the cervical spine, sir.
Go ahead.
And in the right, for the hand X-ray, I would look for any bone and joint deformities which have happened because of the significant claw deformity of the hand. I would see in that case.
Yeah.
Treatment plan: as this patient is having severe functional impairments, first I would like to which neck and right hand are causing severe functional impairments in activities of daily living for the patient. Firstly, I would like to release the neck along with lower lip and right hand release. I would also plan along with neck surgery. First, in this right hand, as wrist is also involved, I would do the wrist release first prior to considering the dorsal contracture release. And if possible, I would like to do a wrist dorsal. I would like to consider dorsal release after wrist release. And during second stage, I would plan for axillary release. I would prefer to do axillary release of one hand, one upper limb at a time, preferably dominant side first. Here she is right dominant. I would try to do the right axillary release first. If at all the dorsal hand release which has been not addressed prior to in stage 1, I would like to address the hand release in this surgery along with this. Here also I would like to release a hand contracture release first and followed by the axillary release, and I would see if there is after release, if assess the while assessing the here dorsum of the hand is not shown in the picture. Considering if it is significantly scarred, I would assess for if there is possibility of requirement of flap cover. I would plan for a flap cover accordingly, or else I would try to resurface with only 6 splits in graft. Prior to addressing for between stage 2 and stage 1, I would ask the patient to go for. I would emphasize the patient on being compliant on splintage and usage of pressure garments. And after the first surgery, I would assess the function prior to the second stage, and I would see how much function in the hand she has regained because of the hand release which was done in the first surgery. And I would like to compare it with the previous photographs before the surgery and how much functional release which could be achieved, which could give a subjective assessment of this thing. And I would assess the possible donor areas, because for the neck resurfacing we would require a lot of skin graft. I would possibly assess for the requirement of donor area, and also during this journey I would stage these stages between minimum a period of 6 months for the splintage. It has to be given for the neck contracture. I would assess the patient compliance with the splintage, and I also discuss the needs of the patient and how eager she wants to go for the rehabilitative surgery, and accordingly if this plan for the hand release could be revisited prior to the stage 2. And once the functional deformities have all been addressed, I would plan for a breast reconstruction. Yes.
Dr. Nishant, before you go ahead, would you like to have a consultation with the anesthesiologist regarding this difficult intubation?
Yes, sir. Prior to the stage 1 neck release, I would discuss the anesthesia plan of intubation with my anesthetist. If they are okay with this intubation, they can plan for a awake fiber optic intubation in this patient. And if still it is not possible,
apart from fiber optic intubation, what are the other methods of intubating this patient that you know of?
Blind nasal intubation.
Blind nasal is one, and any other? Have you heard of video laryngoscope with stylet?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. With video laryngoscope, they can pass a bougie over it. Over the bougie,
and put a
over the bougie, endotracheal tube can be passed safely. Even still with that, anesthetist is not able to intubate and cannot ventilate the patient. I would plan for a under tumescent anesthesia, local infiltration and sedation. I would release the neck contracture so that anesthetist could perform his intubation, and later I would do my further release of the redirect the patient and go ahead with the further release of the.
Dr. Angelina, over to you.
That is, suppose the anesthetist is not able to intubate. You are going ahead with release under tumescent, no?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. How do you do it?
Local infiltration I would give with lignocaine saline infiltrated solution and adrenaline solution, and I would ask anesthetist to give her a sedation with IV ketamine.
Nishant, can you specify what is your proportion and concentration of each of those ingredients?
Sir, I would here like to use a 1 in 2 lakh diluted solution of adrenaline solution with 1 in 2 lakh solution of diluted adrenaline, sir.
How would you prepare this solution, Nishant?
Yes, sir. Commercially available adrenaline ampoules come in a dilution of 1 in 1000 dilution.
Yes. So how many liters of saline would you prepare it in?
Yes, sir. I will take a 20 cc syringe with 19 ml. I will take this 1 ml. So this would come to around 1 in 20,000. This I would add to 100 ml of saline, so that would become 1 in 2 lakh solution, sir.
Would you have to give some local anesthetic also, because you're doing it without any anesthesia, maybe some ketamine? So how much of xylocaine would you put in this 100 cc? That comes to the next question. What is the safe dose of xylocaine? What is the maximum dose of xylocaine that you can use? What is the maximum dose, Nishant?
Maximum dose of xylocaine without adrenaline can be given 3 to 5 ml per kg per kg body weight. If with
3 to 5 ml or 3 to 5 milligram?
Milligrams, sir.
3 to 5 milligrams
per kg body weight.
Yes,
with addition of adrenaline, 5 to up to 7 milligrams per kg body weight can be given safely, sir.
That is right. Now go ahead and tell us how much of xylocaine will you add to this 1 and 2 lakhs adrenaline solution? How many cc of 2% xylocaine will you add to that 100 cc solution?
One vial I would add 30 cc solution.
Yeah. Have you ever? That's a right answer. How much do you sometimes like to add some long-acting local anesthetic like ropivacaine or Marcaine? Would you like to add that sometimes?
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
Yes, sir. Along with lignocaine, I would like to add bupivacaine. Bupivacaine is a longer-acting anesthetic when compared to lignocaine. Lignocaine action would be duration of action is fast, but onset of action is short, but duration is long. But duration is also short. But with bupivacaine, onset of action is slow, but it will have a sustained action for prolonged period. So we can mix one proportion we can add lignocaine and one proportion we can add bupivacaine to this solution, sir.
So this is not really required for the anesthesia, but later on for post-op pain relief, this will be very effective. But as soon as you release, you're going to intubate the patient, and then the patient will be on the regular intubation. Dr. Angelina, over to you.
Then what is the plane to which you release after intubating? What is the position first you want to have?
Yes, ma'am. After intubation is done, I will proceed with the further release. I would till deep, if the release is involving the deeper soft tissue also, I would like to release platysma, and deep cervical fascia also I would like to release it, ma'am.
What is the position of the patient you would like to maintain during your surgery?
Neck in hyperextension, ma'am. After I would want to receive complete range of motion of the neck with neck in hyperextension. That would be my functional goal.
How do you get it? How do you get it?
How will you maintain? How will you
How will you
get it?
On table.
Get a hyperextension of the neck. How do you position the patient on the table?
With bolster underneath the shoulder. And head protected with with a head ring.
Keep a head ring and a
bolster underneath the shoulder.
In the interscapular or below the shoulder level, you keep a pillow and try to extend and keep a small head ring in the below the head, so that the patient is kept in hyperextension, and you try to keep two small pillows on either side so that the neck doesn't move. So from where to where you make the incision?
Laterally, that incision would extend from both neutral lines on either side, from mid-lateral line on both sides, ma'am. Till the normal skin, I would release the incision, and for the ends, I would like to do a fishtailing of the incision on the ends, ma'am. And if in this patient, it is almost grapefruit severely adhered, chin is almost lower lip is plastered to the sternum. We can even also excise the scar tissue, and we can do a darting at the edges of the excised defect. We can do darting of that.
Okay, how much that is? When do you do an incisional release? When do you do an excisional release?
Incisional release. Particularly in this patient, when there is paucity of donor sites, and with excisional release, the requirement of graft will be more. So to save graft donor sites, when there are multiple contractures we require resurfacing, we can prefer to do an incisional release. But in this patient, it's almost severely scarred. It doesn't make much difference with incisional excisional release. And for excisional release, if the overlying scar is hypertrophied, or if it's an unstable scar is there, and retained hair follicles, we would like to resurface the scar with excisional release.
Yeah, because the paucity is there, you may not be able to excise much. You first make the incisional release, see how much is released, and if possible, try to cover it. So, after you release, what do? You check for the, you have done it under tumescence.
Yes, ma'am.
So, what is the caution you would like to have?
Ma'am?
What precaution you would like to take before you apply the graft?
I would like to have an absolute hemostasis. I would check for the absolute hemostasis before placing the graft, ma'am. Grafts I would harvest from the both sides region, almost thick split thickness skin grafts I would harvest, and preferably I will place sheet grafts. Preferably, I will place a sheet grafts, ma'am. Here, the requirement of 3 to 4 sheets would be required. I would place them
What
horizontally.
is the direction in which you would like to place the sheets of graft?
Here, I would like to place the graft horizontally, ma'am.
From lip to the sternum or horizontally?
Horizontally, I would place, ma'am.
Horizontally. And what do you do after placing?
Minimal pie crusting I would like to do, and if there pie crusting or sheet grafting I will only put, and minimal nicks I would made. I will flush the underneath the graft with saline so that if any clot which were there that can be released. After that, filtering switches I will take to recreate the normal creases. Here, filtering switches I would take, try to recreate the normal mentolabial sulcus and cervicomental crease region, and I would like to give a tie over bolster dressing with it.
With the direction in which you would like to give the tie over?
From the edges, I would take the ties, ma'am, and I would tie it in the center.
Again horizontally.
Again horizontally, coming from above.
Horizontally. That's the answer. Horizontally. Okay.
Again horizontally. I would. Horizontal. I would do it. Whatever bolster dressing I would give. After that, I would immobilize the. I would give put 3 or 4 Gamze rolls over that thing, and I would immobilize the neck in extension with a plaster of Paris splint, ma'am.
Okay. When do you do the first dressing?
First check this I would like to do on 7th post-op day, ma'am. 7th post-op day. On first post-op day, I would remove the splint, and I would like to do the dressing. Assess for the viability of the graft. If the graft well stuck, overlapping edges of the graft I would cut and clean gently, remove all the scabs. And at the same time, I would call the therapist inside the OT to take measurements for the splint, so that in next subsequent dressing, a customized splint can be made in next dressings also.
What type of splint do you give usually?
Initially, we will use with plaster of Paris strips. We will cut the plaster of Paris into strips, and we would place those strips, ma'am. While placing the strips also, we would try to put pressure over the mentolabial crease region and over cervicomental region, so that the plaster would firmly be in place. The dressing would be confirmed in those creases, ma'am.
Okay.
First, I would and later after the graft well stuck, I would like to ask the therapist to make for a custom-made splint made of thermoplast or something.
Okay. How long does the patient maintain the splint?
Minimum period of 6 months is required for the splintage. Ideally, it should be continued for 1 year. 6 months initially for splint should be worn continuously. Later for the next 6 months, night-time splint can be given.
How do you take the care of this graft?
Graft after it is well settled, it has to be moisturized with topical lubricants like liquid paraffin or something till the graft matures. And we would give pressure garments also over this thing. Pressure garments also we would give for 6 months, minimum period of 6 months. And in the splint also we can place an insert which should offer some pressure over those regions.
How do you take care of your donor site?
Donor sites also I would here we are taking thick split thickness grafts as they are aesthetically pleasing to cover the neck. So there is a chance of hypertrophic scar formation. So I would give pressure garments also for the site to avoid the hypertrophic scarring.
When do you open the donor site?
Donor sites on 10th day we will open, ma'am. Initially, if there is soakage of donor site, we would remove the superficial layers of dressing, and the most superficial layer of the baxigraft we don't remove it, and we'll apply Gamze rolls and give a dressing over the site. And once the feeling is satisfactory after 10, within 2 weeks we will expect the
donor area to heal.
2 weeks, ma'am. If it is a very thin graft, it would heal by 2 weeks. If it is taking medium to thick split thickness graft, 3 weeks, 2 to 3 weeks it will take, ma'am.
Okay. So, suppose how will you know that the donor site has healed?
What will happen when donor site
What will
heals?
happen?
Ah,
And if you do the dressing,
the dressing will come off spontaneously, ma'am.
the dressing is loose and the
Dressing will
patient
become loose.
gets,
Patient comes to severe itching. Dressing would become loose.
at that time you remove the
Donor side dressing.
donor side. Okay. Now, actually, you said you will like to go ahead with the neck and the wrist
Lip
at
release.
one time.
Yes, ma'am.
How will
Yes,
you
ma'am.
immobilize the wrist?
Wrist I would immobilize an extension, ma'am, because it's having a flexion contracture of the wrist.
Okay.
But during surgery there could be a problem with the tourniquet application, but a low tourniquet can be applied while doing a simultaneous release. For this thing, or else even under tumescent anesthesia, local infiltration technique also, wrist release can be done. Yes,
Suppose
ma'am.
the tendons are getting exposed at that time. What are you going to do?
If tendons are exposed, I would plan for a flap cover, ma'am, abdominal flap cover, or else if it is civil district function, yes, ma'am, flap cover I would like to plan, ma'am, for exposed tendons. Or if the tendons are, I would see for whether the tendon itself is severely contracted. If the tendon itself is also involved in the contractile segment, I would like to perform a tenotomy of the tendon so that we can achieve release. And even if the tendons are not really contributing to the contraction.
Would you like to do it now?
Ma'am?
What can you do? Actually, you find you are able to get about 50% release. Beyond which you feel that tendons are going to be fully exposed. You have already done an extensive neck dissection. What can you do? You can apply a graft.
Apply the
Post-operatively?
Dressing, and then in the post-op period, try to do a
What will you
gradual.
do?
Yes, ma'am, I will try to assess for the grafting in the post-operative period.
How can you achieve the extension?
Then after that,
After that, if graft is well stuck, it's fine, ma'am.
No.
then you go ahead with.
For the hand release, ma'am?
No, wrist.
So, you have only done a 50% release.
Yes,
Beyond
ma'am.
which you couldn't, because you were afraid that you are going to open up the tendons and you are already.
Distraction lengthening is also an option, ma'am. Placement of distraction and lengthening of the severely contracted tendons is also an option.
Distraction.
Go ahead with the serial stretching.
Serial stretching, yes, ma'am.
Okay. Then I think last week you have been hearing about extensive discussion on the hand and axilla. So, do we ask about that or go for the trunk?
You just brief it, Nishant.
Yes, ma'am.
You just tell, that's all. You completed, na?
Yes, ma'am. After neck release, I would try to do a hand release at the same time. I would do the release of the wrist first, and after assessing hand release, I would assess the improvement in the MP flexion. If you are getting some degree of MP flexion, we achieved or not with the wrist release only. And I would assess the dorsal contracture level. And if the dorsum is severely involved, I would try to do an incision release of the dorsum. And my incision I would like to place proximal to the MP joint so that after release they would cover the MP joint. And after consider releasing dorsum also, ma'am. And I would do thick thickness skin graft cover for the wrist and dorsum if feasible at the same time. Also, ma'am. And later, if there is a fear of exposure of MP joints, I would like to plan for a flap cover also for the same abdominal pedicle flaps like abdominal groin flap for exposed MP joints. And after embarking upon to the stage 2, before going onto the stage 2 release of the axilla, I would emphasize the patient that she should be on regular splintage and on pressure garments for this thing. And gentle care this I will provide for the donor areas also I would like to assess. And I would assess the compliance of the patient. I would assess the function of the patient also before I am embarking upon to the second stage. And I would accordingly I would plan for the axillary release and the residual hand release, ma'am. In second stage, I would like to release the axilla. I would like to release the axilla one at a time, preferably right axilla as she is right dominant individual. Incisional or excisional release with cover with a thick split thickness skin graft, and SOS flap cover also can be planned for the hand. If not, then in stage 1, or if the release is inadequate in the stage 1, I would like to do the residual release and dorsal release and cover with a thick split thickness skin graft, and flap cover if required. I plan for a flap cover at the same time. And after release of the right hand and axilla, I would do the left axilla.
Okay.
These are the markings for incisional release of axilla marked on the right side, and markings for excisional release. After complete release, I would like to achieve a minimal abduction of 90 to 110 degrees of shoulder abduction, and I would replace it with the thick thickness skin graft. If required, I would like to do a flap cover also, but here back of the region, so there is some amount of scarring is there. If I would like, can find a doctor with audible perforator of thoracodorsal artery, perforator, or a circumflex capillary artery, I can plan for a flap cover in this patient also, ma'am, so that we can avoid that prolonged linkage. We can avoid the prolonged linkage, and during this thing we can assess for the complaints of the patient with the complaints of the patient with the splint, so that we can plan for this thing. And I would discuss the patient plan also. If she wants a flap cover, so that we can have regular prolonged splintage, we can plan a flap cover also for the following axillary release. Once all the functional release has been achieved, functional problems have been addressed, I would plan for the aesthetic concerns in this patient. Breast reconstruction, I would plan for this patient. I would, before doing my breast reconstruction, I would assess the area of the skin over the anterior chest region. If it is as a scarring, if the scar becomes supple, and we can do a saline fill implant, which can be serially expanded and can be changed over to a permanent silicone implant, or else multiple serial fat grafting also can be done in multiple sessions. Not only this, fat grafting can also improve the quality of the scar, or else we can change so that we can place implants underneath this thing. Nipple areolar recreation later I would plan for.
From one area you have harvested a skin. After
Yes,
how much time can you re-harvest from that area?
We can harvest it with completely healed within 3 weeks. We can reharvest it, ma'am. Here in this patient, for this after staging these releases, a period of 6 months, minimum of 6 months of linkage is required. Ideally 1 year, or a minimum of 1 month. By 6 months, the donor areas would have been healed. Then we can safely take grafts from the regraft. We can take the graft from the donor areas from which the graft has been taken prior, ma'am.
What will be the difference in the skin of the graft that is you are harvesting? Suppose you are doing it for the first time and then you are harvesting on the 5th time. What will be the difference?
We cannot get thick split skin grafts, ma'am. The repeated the grafting, we will
Where
get
does
thinner.
the difference happen? In which layer of skin is the thickness
Dermis, ma'am.
altered?
Dermis.
Dermis. The thickness of the dermis comes down. Okay.
Dr. Angelina, can I ask a
What is the
question?
likely chance of contracture when you are using such skin?
Madam?
Suppose you are applying a graft from a previously harvested donor side. You said
Yes,
the dermis thickness comes down, no? So
Yes, ma'am.
when you are using it again for a contracture release and applying it, the
Yes, ma'am.
thickness of the dermis that you apply is less.
Yes,
So what
ma'am.
happens to that area where you apply the graft? Suppose you are again going to use that skin for your hand or axilla. What is the danger or what is the problem that you can encounter?
Problem in the donor area, ma'am?
No. When you harvest and resurface the contracture release.
From the recipient area after release.
So what will be the problem you can expect?
Postoperatively, it can go into recontracture quickly, ma'am. Because
The chance of contracture is higher, so you will have to maintain a very, very rigid
prolonged.
immobilization and splinting when you do it. Okay.
Nishant, have you heard of dermal substitutes?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Can you give some examples of dermal substitutes?
Yes, sir. Integra, Matridum, and Allodum are options. Integra.
There is one more which is little cheaper called BTM, which is available in India now. BTM, B for Bombay, T for Taxi, M for Madras. So BTM is available. Now, in such cases where Dr. Angelina asked you where there is a paucity of donor site and repeated reharvesting, the dermis is going to become thinner, would you think dermal substitutes would have a role to play?
Yes, sir. They have an option here. Especially even with dermal substitutes, we can avoid a flap cover also.
Yes.
This is also an added benefit. But the one factor is the cost is a prohibitive factor. I would discuss the patient cost.
Of course, cost is not a prohibitive factor. And do you think there are any advantages apart from paucity of donor site if you, the kind of neck contracture that you had, the severe neck contracture that you had, you release it and primarily put a dermal substitute, do you think it has any benefits apart from donor site issues? There is no paucity of donor site. Would you still like to effectively, if you have available Integra, some samples are available of BTM or Matridum, would you like to use it? It's a clean, surgically created wound. You have created the wound on table. So there are less chance of infection. So would you like to use a dermal matrix? And what are the advantages?
Yes, sir. We can avoid a flap also. Even some vital structures are exposed with this thing. And slowly the dermal matrix would revascularize from the bed. And we can see that during the subsequent dressing changes, we can see how much revascularization has happened. And we can cover it with a split thickness skin graft over that thing if you use an Integra.
Roughly at what time do you expect neovascularization to happen in the neck? 1 week, 2 weeks, 3 weeks, or 4 weeks?
By 3 weeks, sir.
Yeah, normally by 3 weeks. What is the kind of color you expect? It's got a very classical color.
Yes, sir. Vanilla color or almond color.
It's called a peach color. It's called a peach color. Classically, it's known as a peach color. Now, when you put this dermal matrix, would you like to create some do some pie crusting, or do you want to create some fenestrations?
No, sir. Integra. No, sir.
Have you ever seen this dermal substitutes being used?
Yes, sir. Integra, over this Integra, it comes with a silicone layer over it. Allodum and Matridum, they don't have they are single layered structures only. They don't have a epithelial or a second covering over that thing.
Yes.
Once everything is vascularized, minimal pie crusting of the silicone layer can be done, sir.
Yes, minimum pie crusting of the silicone layer can be done. Or these days, there's a Brennan mesher available. You can actually mesh it 1:1 and then put it there. It is advocated by the company itself, Integra Life Sciences. Now, having put this thing, what is the other advantage in terms of aesthetics of these dermal substitutes?
Uniform.
What is the other advantage? Aesthetically, how is it? I'm telling you the answer. It is better.
It is better.
Yeah, why is it better?
It would be like a full thickness skin graft, sir.
No, in fact, even better, I will tell you.
Even better, and the suppleness of the skin over it is also better, sir.
Yeah, what is the test it is called to test the suppleness of the skin? What is the test called?
Pinch test.
Absolutely. It's called a pinch test. So if you're able to pinch it up, that means you have created, so there is no adherence to underlying structures. And so there's no puckering when the person moves the neck from side to side. So the answer is the pinch test can be done. Whereas in both the full thickness graft as well as in a split thickness graft, the pinch test will always be negative. You will not be able to do a pinch. Whereas with the pinch is better, the suppleness is better, and the aesthetics become better also. So there are big advantages of using dermal substitutes, and they are now fairly easily available in India. It's a matter of time. By the time you all are in practice, you should be able to use dermal substitutes. So also with the hand release. Now in hand release also many a times to avoid a flap cover. These days we use a dermal substitute. So I think that's something you have to mention in your answer when you answer. This is an alternative I would like to consider if I have cost is not a criteria.
Yes, sir. Before doing the second stage, I would discuss all the possible options with the patient, cost options and the problem with splintage, if affordable and everything, and patient is not okay with the prolonged positioning for the flap cover and he is not willing for a prolonged splintage and he wants.
Yes.
Cost is not a prohibitive factor. Definitely, I would consider dermal regeneration templates as an option.
Dr. Angelina.
I think
There's
So let's go ahead with the next case.
shall we go to Madhavi madam?
Yes, I think we can go to Madhvi Gachmi.
Yeah.
Let's go,
Madhavi?
Gachmi.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay,
Thank you, Dr.
Nishant.
Nishant.
How
Hi,
you
Thank you,
doing?
I'm stopping my screen.
Presented well?
Thank you,
Very
ma'am.
nice.